I'm so glad you're here with us today. We're diving deep into A Course in Miracles, and if you're just joining our community, you might be wondering what this course is all about. I'd love to invite you to check out the very first video on this channel, where I break down exactly what A Course in Miracles is, how it came to exist, and why it's been transforming lives for over 5 decades. It'll give you the perfect foundation for everything we explore together here. Today we're exploring something that will either bring you immense relief or make your ego extremely uncomfortable. Probably both. We're talking about the problem and the answer. Not problems, plural, not answers, plural. The problem, the answer, singular. One. And I know what you're thinking. One problem? Are you kidding? I have 1,000 problems. I have financial problems, relationship problems, health problems, work problems, family problems. I have problems with my past, problems with my present, and I'm pretty sure I'll have problems in my future. How can you tell me there's only one problem? This is exactly what the ego wants you to believe. That your problems are multiple, varied, complex, and each one requires a different solution. The ego loves complexity. It thrives on it. Because as long as you're busy solving this problem over here and that problem over there, you'll never stop long enough to see what's really going on. You'll never trace all these problems back to their single source. Think about how exhausting it is to live this way. You solve one problem and 2 more pop up. You fix this issue and that issue gets worse. You put out this fire and another one starts somewhere else. It's like playing whack-a-mole with your entire life. You're constantly busy, constantly strategizing, constantly working on problems, but you never seem to get ahead. You never reach that place of peace where all the problems are finally solved. That's because you're looking at the branches instead of the root. You're treating symptoms instead of the disease. You're trying to fix the effects while leaving the cause completely untouched. And the ego loves this approach because it keeps you perpetually occupied, perpetually distracted, perpetually convinced that the solution is just one more problem away. But what if everything you think is a problem isn't actually the problem at all? What if all those issues you're struggling with are just different expressions of one underlying error? What if there's actually only one thing wrong, and everything else is just that one thing showing up in different costumes, wearing different masks, pretending to be multiple problems? This is what Chapter 11, Section 8 reveals with stunning clarity. There is one problem, only one. And because there's only one problem, there's only one answer. Not 1,000 solutions for 1,000 problems. One answer that addresses the single source of everything you think is wrong. And here's what makes this so powerful. Once you identify the real problem and accept the real answer, every single issue in your life shifts. Not because you solved each problem individually, but because you corrected the one error that was producing all of them. It's like unplugging a machine. Once the power source is disconnected, all the individual components stop running automatically. The ego doesn't want you to know this. The ego's entire survival depends on keeping you focused on multiplicity, on complexity, on the endless variety of problems that require endless vigilance and endless solutions. Because the moment you see the one problem clearly, the moment you accept the one answer, the ego's game is over. So today, we're going to strip away all the complexity. We're going to trace every problem back to its source. And we're going to discover the single answer that's been waiting patiently beneath all your problem-solving efforts. Are you ready to simplify your entire existence? Let's begin. Let's get to the heart of it. What is the one problem? What's the single error that's responsible for every form of suffering, every experience of pain, every moment of fear you've ever had? The belief in separation from God. That's it. That's the whole problem. Every single issue you face, every conflict you experience, every pain you feel, traces back to this one insane idea that you could actually be separate from your source, separate from love, separate from your Creator. Now, you might be thinking, wait, my problems are real and specific. My relationship issues, my money struggles, my health concerns. How can you tell me they're all just about separation from God? Stay with me, because once you see this clearly, everything changes. Here's how it works. The moment the idea of separation seemed to arise in your mind, the tiny, mad idea that you could exist independently from God, everything else followed automatically. Because if you're separate from God, then you're separate from perfect love. If you're separate from perfect love, then you must be vulnerable. If you're vulnerable, then you need protection. If you need protection, then there must be threats. And suddenly, you've created an entire world of problems. This is the ego's strategy of multiplication. It takes one error, the belief in separation, and explodes it into a million different forms. It creates bodies that can be hurt, relationships that can fail, resources that can run out, time that's running out, death that's approaching. It manufactures an endless variety of threats, all stemming from that single false belief. Think about any problem you're facing right now, any problem at all. Now ask yourself, would this problem exist if you knew with absolute certainty that you're eternally one with God? Would financial fear exist if you knew you're forever connected to infinite abundance? Would relationship anxiety exist if you knew you're permanently joined with all of creation in perfect love? Would health concerns exist if you knew you're not actually a body, but an eternal spirit? No. None of these problems would exist. They only seem real because you believe the separation is real. They only have power over you because you've accepted the fundamental premise that you could actually be apart from your source. This is why you can spend your entire life solving problems and never reach peace. Because you're trying to fix the effects while the cause remains untouched. You're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. You're treating individual symptoms of a disease whose origin you haven't addressed. And here's what makes this both devastating and liberating. Separation never actually happened. It's impossible. You can no more be separate from God than a wave can be separate from the ocean, than a ray can be separate from the sun. The separation is a fantasy, a dream, an impossibility that you've somehow convinced yourself is reality. But because you believe it's real, you experience its effects. You live in a world created by the belief in separation, a world of conflict, scarcity, loss, and death, a world where problems multiply endlessly because they're all sprouting from that single poisoned root. One error created all of this. The belief that you could be separate from love created an entire universe of fear. Now let's talk about why the ego works so hard to keep you believing in multiple problems. Because once you understand the ego's game, you'll see it playing out everywhere in your life. The ego has a vested interest in complexity. Its very existence depends on it. Think about it. If there's only one problem, and that problem is the belief in separation, then the solution is simple. Recognize that separation never happened. Accept your oneness with God. Done. Problem solved. Ego gone. But the ego can't allow that. so it creates a brilliant diversion. It multiplies the one problem into thousands of different forms, each one seeming unique, each one demanding its own specific solution. It keeps you so busy managing all these different problems that you never step back far enough to see what's really happening. This is how the ego guarantees its survival. As long as you're convinced you have countless problems, you need the ego to help you solve them. You need its strategies, its defenses, its complex solutions. The ego becomes indispensable. It positions itself as your problem solver, your protector, your guide, through the maze of difficulties it created in the first place. And here's the truly diabolical part. The ego ensures that solving one problem always creates another. You fix your financial situation, but now your relationship suffers. You improve your health, but now you're anxious about maintaining it. You resolve a conflict at work, but now there's tension at home. It's an endless cycle, and it's designed to be endless. Why? Because if you ever actually solved all your problems, you'd stop needing the ego. You'd recognize that something else is possible. You'd start asking different questions. You'd begin to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the whole problem-solving approach is flawed from the start. The ego keeps you exhausted on purpose. It keeps you running from crisis to crisis, putting out fires, managing emergencies. Because an exhausted mind doesn't have the energy to question. A mind in survival mode doesn't stop to examine the foundation it's building on. You're too busy dealing with effects to ever look at the cause. And the problems feel so real, so urgent, so specific. Your unpaid bills aren't a metaphor. Your difficult relationship isn't just a symbol. Your health issue isn't merely conceptual. They feel concrete, pressing, undeniable. So you approach them as concrete, specific problems requiring concrete, specific solutions. But what the ego doesn't want you to see is this. All these problems are connected. They're all expressions of the same fundamental error. They're all the separation belief dressed up in different costumes. Your financial fear is separation. Your relationship anxiety is separation. Your health concern is separation. Every single problem is the same problem wearing a different mask. The ego's greatest trick is making you believe that your problems are real, separate, and multiple. Because once you believe that, you're trapped in its system. You'll spend your life solving problems that stem from the one problem you're not looking at, but you're looking at it now. And that changes everything. So you've seen the one problem, the belief in separation. Now let's talk about the one answer, and prepare yourself, because it's going to seem too simple. The ego has trained you to expect complex solutions for complex problems. But the Course offers you something radically different. One answer for the one problem. The answer is atonement. And before your mind fills with religious baggage about sacrifice and blood and suffering, let me tell you what atonement actually means in the Course. It's not about paying for sins. It's not about earning forgiveness through suffering. Atonement, in the Course's terms, is simply the correction of the error. It's the undoing of the belief in separation. It's the acceptance that what you thought happened never actually happened. At one meant being at one. Recognizing that you never left your unity with God. That's the answer. That's the entire answer to every problem. Always. Think about how simple this is. You don't need a different solution for each problem because you don't actually have different problems. You have one error showing up in many forms, so you need one correction that applies to every form. When you accept atonement, when you accept that the separation never happened, every problem that stemmed from that belief dissolves automatically. It's like waking up from a nightmare. In the nightmare, you had 1,000 different threats, 1,000 different problems. The monster was chasing you. You were falling. You were trapped. Each threat seemed separate and real. But what solved all those problems? One thing: waking up. The moment you opened your eyes, every single nightmare problem vanished. Not because you solved each one individually, but because you corrected the fundamental error. You thought the dream was real. That's how atonement works. It's the awakening. It's the recognition that the separation was a dream, and in that recognition, every problem born from the separation belief loses its power over you. So how do you apply this answer to every situation? Simple. In every moment of fear, every moment of conflict, every moment of pain, you pause and remember. This is showing me the separation belief. This is what happens when I forget my oneness with God. And then you choose differently. You choose to remember instead of forget. You choose truth instead of illusion. You choose your reality as God created it, instead of the ego's fantasy. You don't need a different strategy for your financial fears than you do for your relationship anxieties. You don't need one approach for health issues and another for work problems. Every situation calls for the same answer. Remember the truth. Accept the atonement. Choose oneness over separation. This is the simplicity the ego fears most, because simple can't be controlled. Simple can't be manipulated. Simple cuts through all the ego's elaborate defenses and goes straight to the heart of the matter. One problem, one answer, total freedom. It's been available all along. You just have to accept it. So here we are. You've seen it clearly now. One problem, not 1,000. One answer, not 1,000,000 different solutions. The belief in separation created everything you think is wrong. And the acceptance of atonement, the recognition that separation never happened, dissolves it all. This is the simplicity you've been searching for your whole life. This is the relief you've been craving. You don't have to solve 1,000 problems. You don't have to master complex strategies for each different issue. You just have to accept one truth. You never left God. The separation never happened. You're still as God created you, whole and perfect, and eternally one with your source. Every problem in your life is calling you to remember this. Every moment of fear is an invitation to choose atonement. Every experience of pain is showing you where you've believed the separation was real. And in every single moment, you have the power to choose differently, to remember instead of forget, to accept truth instead of illusion. The ego wants you to believe that life is complicated, that problems are endless, that solutions are difficult and varied. But the Course offers you something infinitely more powerful: the recognition that there's only one thing to correct, and that correction is already complete. You're just learning to accept it. If this video helped you, see the simplicity beneath all the complexity. If it brought you relief to know there's only one problem and one answer, please leave a like. It helps this message reach others who are tired of the endless problem-solving cycle. Subscribe to the channel so you continue this journey of radical simplification with us every day. Share this video with someone you know who's exhausted from trying to solve 1,000 different problems. And please leave a comment. Tell me, what problems in your life can you now trace back to the belief in separation? Where are you ready to apply the one answer instead of searching for complex solutions? What shifts when you remember there's only one error to correct? Your insights help all of us. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your willingness to see things simply, to accept the one answer, to stop complicating what God created as perfectly simple. Keep remembering. Keep choosing atonement. Keep accepting the truth. Until the next video. And may you experience today the profound peace that comes from knowing there's only one problem and it's already solved.